This weekend, Virginia International Raceway and the Sports Car Club of America combined to form a mecca for lovers of sports car racing. Almost 500 drivers in over 20 classes will do battle in a race for the gold. Since 1964, SCCA has been crowning national champions at its annual runoffs, the peak of the Summit Racing Equipment SCCA road racing program. For the second straight year, welcome to the track that Paul Newman once called Heaven on Earth, for the historic 60th annual SCCA Runoffs. A beautiful afternoon has appeared here as we start to move into the late afternoon at Virginia International Raceway for the 60th running of the SCCA National Championship Runoffs. Our broadcast being presented by Mazda. Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Creamer, joined by five-time solo national champion and two-time Pirelli World Challenge champion Tom O'Gorman and Hayward Wagner, covering all the action down in the pit lane. And I'll tell you what, we've got a good one coming up. It is the Touring 3 class, and the reason I mention it's a good one coming up is because last year, in the very depths of Hurricane Ian's effects here, it was absolutely torrential rain, massive winds, and the competitors in Touring 3 put on an absolutely scintillating race with only one off-track excursion at all that I can remember. It was superb stuff. That's the quality that we have here. And down amongst them, as I said, is Hayward Wagner.
Guys, you're absolutely right. Last year's race was as much a barn burner as you can have in a hurricane, with a great finish and a Donahue Award coming out of that race for our national champion. Of course, that was one of the Ott brothers. This year, it's the other Ott brother who's on pole. Got a couple of Z3s up front, or Z4s up front, then some Nissans. One of the things that's coolest about these cars, in a time long ago in a place not far away, the runoffs was really about showroom stock racing, cars straight off the factory floor that would run, you would see 40, 50 car fields. This is kind of the next version of that, the next evolution of that. Touring 1 and 2 allows for a little bit more of the pro cars, the pro builds. This is really the showroom racers. These are the cars that have minimum modifications, a little bit of balance of performance. I think we're going to see a great race. Obviously, the Ott brothers here on the front row, a couple of Nissans right behind them, going to try to make sure that those guys stay close, stay in contention. Most of all, these guys are just excited that it's dry. And while I've got you guys, I do spy with my little eye President CEO of SCCA standing right behind Sidney Davis the Eagle, who's going to be splitting the field. So make sure we get a good camera shot of the boss, making sure that Sidney has it on lockdown.
All right. Well, yeah, absolutely. This is interesting. We actually have a former champion in one of those showroom stock categories. Showroom B won at Mid-Ohio in 2004 by James Lighthouser, who will be starting in the 5th spot. There it is. There's the shot here as they are getting ready to go. And Tom, as always, when you come to the run-ups, interesting stories unfolding in the paddock through the testing and qualifying days.
Yeah, of course. We want to give a shout-out to Marshall Mast, who was picked to be on the podium, I believe, win by Sports Car Magazine, has won this class before, had a massive brake failure, and ultimately rode off the car in testing.
Yep.
Won't be able to take to the track, but we wish he would, or wish he could.
We wish he would, too, because
Sure.
he's such a competitor. Let's take a look at the Mazda track map. And, this place is really special on a lot of different levels, and it's also, one of the great compromise tracks because there's super high-speed stuff and really twisty bits.
Yeah, a lot of challenges. And these cars, as Hayward mentioned, not all that modified. So some of these corners where other classes don't really have to think about them, these cars are fast enough and not modified enough that certain corners start to stand out. So heavy on the brakes down into turn 1, up through the sweeping NASCAR turn 3, into the left hook at 4, into the lower S's. That's kind of going to be the place where these cars don't have nearly the nimbleness that a lot of the other classes have. Then into the uphill S's should be more or less close to flat out, but it's a lot of weight and a lot of speed moving through these cars at 130-ish. Top of the S's, I would guess. Then through the exit at Oak Tree, down the back straight. That's where those Z4Ms tend to be really, really good. Then we finally get through Roller Coaster into Hog Pen, down the front straight, where we've seen multiple races end with with a less than a tenth gap between cars because of how long that front straight is.
Yeah, incredibly close, and this field should be putting on a great show. Let's run you through it here. Starting in the 18th spot, making a second start here in the runoffs, the 53 of Alan Burrier out of Columbia, Connecticut, in the Coney ECS Tuning VW GTI from 2006, one of the older cars in the field. There are older, though. Starting in the 17th spot, a rookie to the runoffs, in the number 10, Randy Johnson from Tacoma, Washington, in the Night Transport Mustang. Starting in the 16th spot, another rookie to this series, the number 13 of Frank Seldorf. I know Frank. I've announced him a lot at Ferrari Challenge over the years, out of Boston, Massachusetts, in a 2001 BMW 330. Starting in the 15th spot, second runoff start for the number 39 of Edward Karabek out of Scarborough, Maine, in a BMW. Starting in the 14th spot, ninth runoff start for the 17 of Steve Simchek out of New Berlin, Wisconsin, the Corrosion Control Resources Nissan. Starting in the 13th spot, making his second runoff start, the 87 of Ben Schlechter out of Middletown, Delaware, in the Carbotech Penske Nissan. Starting in the 12th spot, the number 88 of Anthony Pacelli from Morristown, Virginia. Starting in the 11th spot will be the number 44 second runoff start for J. David Oram out of Mercer Island, Washington. There's a toe for you in his BMW Spec E46. Starting in the 10th spot, last year's Sunoco Hard Charger, the number 28 of Jared Lendra, making his ninth runoff start out of Queensbury, New York, in the North Country Subaru WRX. Starting in the 9th spot, a guy that had a lot of success in the B-Spec category over the years, stepping up into T3, the 30 of Travis Wache, his sixth runoff start out of Milford, Connecticut, the Indian Summer Racing 2015 VW GTI. Starting in the 8th spot, second runoff start for the 81 of Simon Azalin out of Sammamish, Washington, the Racer on Rails BMW. Starting in the 7th spot, a rookie, the son of Frank Seldorf, the 19 of Francis Seldorf, also out of Boston, Massachusetts, and he is running a BMW. Also has experience in Ferrari Challenge. Starting outside of that third row, 6th spot, making the second runoff start, the number 29 of Xiaoye Che out of Washington, D.C., and in the TCL and Tech Sport Racing Toyota 86. Starting in the 5th spot, 18th start for the 06 of former champion, as I said, James Lighthouser out of Louisville, Colorado, winning in the Showroom Stock B category back in 04 at Mid-Ohio, the Hoosier Bimmer World and Bimmer House BMW Z4M. Starting outside of row 2, the 24th start for the driver, the number 4, that's Rob Hines out of Arlington, Virginia, in the Tech Sport G-Lock Hoosier Nissan. And then starting in the 3rd spot, making his third runoff start, is the number 5 of Chris Hart out of Yakima, Washington, the FabTech Nissan. And your front row, starting outside in spot 2, 21st, started the runoffs for the 09 last year's champion, Jason Ott, who qualified pole last year out of Seminole, Florida, in the Alpine Motorsports Hoosier and Spyglass BMW Z4M. And on pole, his brother, who finished second last year, the number 26, making his 12th start, Steve Ott out of Houston, Texas, in the Hoosier Alpine Motorsports BMW Z4M. So the brothers Ott sweep the front row, but an awful lot of talent behind them here. I mean, Chris Hart, third at Daytona in 2021. Rob Hines, a former champion in the T2 category. And there you see it, Steve Ott, the Tire Rack Pole Award winner, with his lap at a 2-minute 4.520.
And Jason Ott was able to qualify on pole and win, so he was fast in the dry and good in the wet last year in that white and blue car. But Steve Ott now on pole. He was quickest for the second half of last year's race in those worst conditions, and he's coming out on pole this year. Maybe he can try to sweep this one.
It's going to be fun to watch here as they are coming down through Hogs Pen, the last corner here, and getting ready to launch onto the front straight. And it will be the Ott brothers leading the way here. There is an acceleration zone as we see the pace car. Once again, thank you to Mazda and Sport Durst Mazda in Durham, North Carolina, for presenting and providing those pace cars. And watching as soon as they get into the acceleration zone, it's up to your pole sitter, Steve Ott, and he will decide when to go. And green flag, we're green in our final race of day 2 of our Hagerty race days here at the Runoffs. And here we go, down into turn 1, and a really, really good start. The front row nicely controlled by the Otts, and the number 5 of Chris Hart sort of trapped on the outside there, Tomo.
Yeah, great start for Lighthouser as well.
Yeah.
Who's just passed in front of Rob Hines. So Hines back to 5th from 4th on the grid, but it's a little bit of a breakaway for the Otts, just in front of Chris Hart, switching from a BMW, lunge from Hines up the inside of 4, but Hart in the red Z, switching from a Spec E46 BMW to try to get himself a little further up this T3 field, and he's right with them right now. That Z is strong in the lower S's.
It certainly looks to be here, and we'll see what that's got in terms of the high-speed run here as we're watching him now starting to make their move through. Oops, somebody dropping a tire there, and through what they call the snake now. Now, Tomo, first time in speed here through the high-speed uphill S's.
Yeah, those two Indian Summer Racing cars of Francis Seldorf and Travis Wachet locked together, working about 7th and 8th. That's one of the only front-wheel drive cars and the only, I believe, DSG shifting car in the field. But this is your top 3. Look at the Jason Ott, a little bit better on the brakes, up underneath the back bumper of Steve Ott. And what we've tended to see is the BMWs are very much in line with everybody here in T4, while Lighthouser running wide. Until we get to the end of this back straight, they're so slippery, and they really work well at the end of the long straightaways.
All right, and that's going to really hurt Lighthouser here, and we may, as a result, see Hines be able to go through. That's a great battle. It looks like Hines getting a little help here as well. Maybe that might be Shoya Che. We'll see, but here we go, heading down in here. And that 29 is indeed Che, and trying to squeeze through on the 06 of Lighthouser, and it's going to be interesting. Oh, they are so close. That was as close as you could get with still respect, at least at that point, not a touch. And finally, Lighthouser goes, well, you know what? You played that well.
Yeah, Xiao Yu Che, that was very, very well played. I mean, gave him an inch, but no more. And Lighthouser raced very, very cleanly as well. That GR86, the black with some graphics on it, is the only naturally aspirated 4-cylinder in the field. So he's doing a little bit more with a little bit less than everybody else. As you can see, gets dumped on the straights by just a little bit. But it's a fantastic handling car, among the newer cars in the field by far, as he's now so good on the brakes, right up underneath the back bumper of Lighthouser. Maybe a kiss, but it's all clean.
I think there was, but it wasn't a very passionate one, so they were able to continue on here and get going. But look at this big counter move by Wachet now, and that number 30 trying to come back on it. And Xiao Yu Che drops back just a little bit, and right behind him, Francis Seldorf looking pretty racy early as well. And I'll tell you, Francis just sort of appeared when his dad, Frank Seldorf, into Ferrari Challenge, which I announced for a number of years. And Francis was really quick right from the off, and has just continued to show some good pace.
And that car's a little different. It's actually an E46 M3, so it's well over 3,300 pounds, gets a little bit bigger wheel and tire package, but it's different than the rest of the BMWs you'll see in the field, which means it's got a lot more car to manage, really, on its spec line. You see him sawing at the wheel over the crest at the top of the S's, but Travis Wachet picked up a couple spots that last lap. He's trying to get things done early when that front-wheel drive car is in prime condition.
Yeah, Travis, super experienced in the B-Spec category, an absolute front runner there, whether it be in SCCA National competition. He's even done pro racing in World Challenge as well. But, boy, I'll tell you, that top group of 3 sort of checking out here, and the Otts opening up maybe about 0.8 of a second across the line on Chris Hart. But Hart starting, it looks like, to eat some of that back up just a little bit, but they've dropped Hines now to the tunes of about 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, I'll tell you, though, Chris Hart is keeping them honest. They're not going to have it as easy as they would have liked, as it is still Steve Ott from the pole leading the way in that black and yellow, then Jason Ott, defending champion, in the white and blue. Chris Hart, new to him in that 370Z, upgrading from a slightly older BMW, really, really clinging onto the back of these guys. And I think it's Sector 1 where that 370, the red car, is the fastest. We'll see how much closer he gets. As you can see, the BMW is pulling away on the straights. It's about to go away.
Yeah, Chris Hart, third in 2021 at Indy in this category, so he has experienced the medals and wants to be able to go after it again. Then that gap, as I said, back to Rob Hines. Then here is Lighthouser, and then Travis Wache should be able to go through here, and some really good battling unfolding. Want to go back and take a look at it. This great exchange here as well. That's the number 19 of Francis Seldorf. And again, so close, but again, Tomo, I don't think they touched.
No, I don't think they did, but Xiao Yuche knows he has to be scrappy. He's at a disadvantage in the straight lines, which means he's got to be very up on the wheel in the corners. Francis Seldorf, though, we've seen him in also IMSA competition, a partner of the SCCA throughout the qualifying days, was in the VP Challenge, which is the sprint series. He's been racing a GT4 car, so he's used to tight rubbing like that if he's in pro racing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not a lot of margins given there, and at the runoffs, you don't get many favors either here, just as long as it's nice and respectful. Another good look here at Travis Wache, and just doing a really nice job here in this VW GTI, dueling right now with James Lighthouser. There's the run up through Oak Tree. Such a critical corner here, Tomo, and really important to get a good run. And everybody looks like they're just really trying through there. At this stage, it's early, trying to be line astern and just get a good run out.
Yeah, this track does tend to turn into 3 long dyno poles in a slower car. These cars are right at that tipping point where they're still probably lifting a little at the top of the S's. They're still dealing with a little bit more than just 3 long straightaways, but this is, no matter what, obviously just flat out, and top speed is everything. To give you an idea, it is a little over 137 miles an hour, best trap speed, 38 miles an hour, I should say, for the Otts. Chris Hart is about 3 miles an hour off that deficit, and that's counting with draft. So that's the difference in the power and the straight line slipperiness, I should say, of the Z4M.
And speaking of Z's, there is the number 4 of Rob Hines. He was our Hawk Performer Breakthrough Award winner. That is given out on Wednesday, and it's for the driver who makes the biggest improvement in position in qualifying from Tuesday to Wednesday. And Rob Hines got that, and it was a great run for him because it put him up on that second row, and that's pretty critical.
Not able to keep up with this top 3, as you see the gap between maybe a corner or so. But then you see Chris Hart actually last time through on timing and scoring set the fast lap of the race. He's keeping these guys, as I said, honest, but he's taken from keeping them honest to putting the pressure on in big time.
Yeah, starting to really mount it up here a little bit and getting after it. And I was going to ask you, Tomo, we've got those 2 BMWs, then that Nissan. Are any of them known to be a little bit harder maybe on tires and even due to weight or just for setup and handling characteristics?
We know the Otts have been doing a lot of shock work to get those cars more compliant over the bumps, which is going to make them easier to drive. I haven't seen, because we've had weather affected, any sort of distinctive advantage on a longer run, shorter run, other than that everybody was really quick out the gate and everybody fell off in qualifying. There was not as much longevity in these heavier cars, a little bit tire limited. What I would bet is that Chris Hart is really going to have to rely on this draft to stay in the hunt. But again, no real indication one way or the other if the cars are going to start to fall away in any different way.
And one of the things that regardless, everybody is going to, because as you said, the weight of the cars and when Tom says tire limited, he's not talking about a bad tire. It's just not enough tire. There's a certain tire size that you're allowed to run based on the various characteristics of the car, and generally it's set at a position where if you just try and run qualifying laps for 15 laps around here, the tire is just going to lose a fair amount of its grip. Doesn't fail or anything. It just loses some grip. And keep in mind too that when you start the race, the one thing that does help is as you scrub that tire a little bit, it takes heat with it, and then as their carcass wears away, there's less carcass for it to hang on to. And Chris Hart really wide down in turn 1. He's been pushing so hard, and didn't lose as much as I thought he was, but he was out there.
The only real difference otherwise is they weigh a very similar minimum weight, but the 350Z is limited to a 255 series width tire.
Okay.
The BMWs get a 275, so that means that the slightly narrower tire on the Z, it doesn't necessarily have less grip for it. It doesn't necessarily have less capability, but it can be more prone to overheating. That would be a little bit tricky for Hart to manage.
All right, he's going to be doing his absolute best with that. And these guys, boy, I'll tell you, Hart is doing a superb job of sticking right with them here and keeping them very honest as they are working around here. And really, it's so fun. With our camera guys are doing an absolutely phenomenal job. The looks we're seeing inside the cars, watching the drivers sawing on the wheel. Every once in a while, you can even see, the driver's eyes looking through corners. Just absolutely fascinating. And that's all part of this game. Is if you're really going fast. I had an instructor once tell me, he told the whole group, he said, if you're going through a corner and the car feels really good and planted, you're not going fast enough. You need to be making all those little minor corrections here and there, maybe not quite that exaggerated for Steve Simchek in that beautiful red Nissan 370Z, in a good battle right now, back in that 12th, 13th, 14th spot, number 44 of J. David Oram right behind him in that BMW.
Yeah, Oram thought about it going up the inside, but I love this level of prep because you really have to drive the car. You have to understand weight transfer. You have to understand moving the car across the track in a way that's, yes, a little bit of slip angle, but not actually sliding. It's a really fun skill to be able to drive cars like this. It's still proper shifting, the 6 speeds and most of the cars, maybe some 5 speeds down in some of the older cars. But as we talk about that, the Otts are starting to look a little bit stronger than Hart. This is Hart last time through, just a little bit slower, not this current lap, but the previous lap to that. This time through, they were literally tied a bunch of 206.7s.
I'm glad you said proper shifting, because to me, one thing that, back in the day anyway, it used to separate people was the people that, a little mistake there. As Jason Ott running just a little bit wide, and Steve Ott suddenly gets a little bit of a margin, and Chris Hart all over the back of Jason Ott. But one of the things that I rue is what I used to call the race driver's ballet, which is that footwork, the heel and toes, and making it all happen while you're threshold braking in. It's incredible stuff, and it lives in some of these SCCA classes, and that is really cool.
It's a little strange. Oh, sorry. They're a little strange. I'll let you just act. A little strange. Looks like Jason Ott locked up there.
Yeah.
That's what happened. But that car should have anti-lock brakes. Either way, a little chink in the armor for Jason Ott. Chris Hart is going to have noticed that.
Absolutely, and he's going to hound him through that section. There's no question about that. So while we have things settled here just a little bit, time for us to let you learn a little bit more about the fabulous partners that make the runoffs possible.
A car like this shouldn't exist. Something this big, this luxurious, shouldn't move like a Mazda. And yet, it does.
Oh my God, it sounds epic as well. This car is an SUV with bragging rights.
The all-new 3-row Mazda CX-90.
Okay, so pretend this is your race car. It's on the trailer, on the way home after a day at the track. And say you have an accident. Ouch! But at least your truck's insurance will pay for another one? Yeah, not so fast. Your standard insurance probably won't pay to replace your car. That's true whether it's in the trailer, in the paddock, in the garage, or in the repair shop. If you want to be covered for the whole value of your race car, you need guaranteed value coverage from Hagerty. We agree on an accurate value up front, and in event of a covered total loss anywhere off the track, we pay that amount. You'll be protected in storage, in transit, in the paddock, or a repair shop against collision, fire, theft, no matter what or where you race. All for less per year than you spend on a set of racing tires. Hagerty, let's drive together.
Got some absolutely superb racing that is going on here in this field, as you might well imagine. Obviously, that group up top doing a nice job, but Travis Wache, and let's go back and take a look here as Travis getting around Rob Hines. Watch this move, Tomo.
Great on the brakes around the outside, and that front-wheel drive GTI keeps the momentum up, power down early, and watch it just kind of chug off this corner. Pulls ahead of the older 350Z Nismo of Hines, and that's just where you want to be for NASCAR Turn 3 as you see the car kind of float, rotate, and pivot right there beautifully into the apex of turn 3. Now, Wache has pro racing wins. Rob Hines has a ton of racing experience. These are two very experienced drivers battling it out. But when I talked to Wache earlier this week, he said his car was just kind of meh. He wasn't very happy with it. He must have been working on it hard because it looks really nice right now.
Yeah, they've done something. Boy, that just affected Rob Hines' rhythm, didn't it? Because James Lighthouser just went by Hines as well on the run down into this roller coaster section of track. And that can happen. You just get off rhythm a little bit, and it takes you a bit to get back into it. And you got a veteran like Lighthouser behind you, he's going to pounce.
And he may be finding his rhythm as well, because he kind of floundered. He had the really, really aggressive start, but then floundered his way back a couple of positions. Now that things are stabilized just slightly, he might be finding that momentum, because he is ultimately driving basically the same car as our top two. Taking a look at those now, we know the speed is there. He's just finding it lap after lap.
Yeah, and the battle for 7th, also Francis Seldorf and Xiaoyu Che haven't added as well. But back up to the front here, because obviously Jason Ott was able to quickly recover from that little moment and has closed back in again on brother Steve, who leads this one. But for whatever they're trying to do, it's not working in terms of shaking Chris Hart. He is just glued.
And these can be some of the most stressful races. It may not be the door banging, passing left and right that we've seen in some other races, but they're literally putting in qualifying laps, lap after lap after lap. It's so stressful in the car to be under that amount of pressure. The most calm is probably Chris Hart. He's just in the zone. He's got the least to lose from this, but Steve and Jason both in the first and second positions, they can't make a mistake. They absolutely cannot make a mistake, as you see Chris Hart make up just a little bit more time through South Bend there.
Well, we saw what happened when Jason made that slight mistake in the left hook, and a big gap as Steve checked out a little bit, and Chris Hart was all over the back of him here. And again, here's Lighthouser in front of Hines. That's 5th and 6th. And then behind these two you're going to get a really good look at Francis Seldorf and Xiaoyu Che having a good scrap. There's Lighthouser right there. There they are. And I'll tell you what, Francis Seldorf has it, but Xiaoyu Che is so close. And it's in this dyno run where Xiaoyu is going to lose a little bit of ground, but boy, is he good when the corners come up.
Probably two of the most different cars in the grid, ultimately.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, the only naturally aspirated 4-cylinder there for the GR86 of Xiaoyu Che, and then Seldorf in the much, much heavier BMW. But we're working lap 8 of 15, over halfway done with this race. Got to wonder how much longer does that BMW have at 3,300 pounds, where everybody else around is a little bit lighter.
Problem here for the number 44 of J. David Oram, who had been having a pretty solid race, knocking on the door of a top 10. That's going to cost him just a little bit. Hate to see that happen. He made a long tow from Mercer Island, Washington. Watch in the background there, just overshot the entry into Oak Tree.
So easy to do. If you've never driven VIR, you literally cannot see the Oak Tree corner until you have to turn in for it. And if you don't build a muscle memory, or if you have that slight lapse in judgment, it's very easy to just be like, oops. And we've mentioned Seldorf, that car very heavy. How much tires does it have left? I don't know. He just missed the current one corner and falls off for just a moment.
Yeah, maybe that's exactly what you were chatting about here. And that is going to allow Xiaoyu Che now. Not only did he benefit from Seldorf going off, but he has glommed onto the back of Rob Hines as well. So in that Toyota GR86, those are great handling cars. You've talked about it, and everybody that I've talked to that drives them just says, "Oh, are they a fun car?"
Yeah, they're a ton of fun, and we've seen the first-gen cars be extremely successful in T4, but the extra 0.4 liters they gave it for the updated car, it's an exponentially better improvement than 0.4 liters should ever be. It's a great platform. Speaking of, I've always joked since I was a kid, you set your fastest lap in a sim and then you immediately crash in turn 1. Seldorf had just set his fastest lap and goes off in turn 1, so
there you go.
It can happen.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at that lap, what was it, a 2:07.9, and that wasn't that far off of where he qualified. And obviously, we're talking about some worn tires, so doing a nice job. It's the first time now we've seen that gap from these two, the Otts, back to Chris Hart, a little bit larger than I've seen it a couple of times. But boy, he rolls some speed down through the roller coaster, doesn't he? I'm talking about Chris Hart.
Yeah, absolutely. The Z is clearly the better handling car when they get to corners, but it's tough to, keep that gap and that gain when you have such long straightaways. I will say Jason Ott is starting to apply the pressure to his brother Steve, who's in the lead. We haven't really seen them that close. The corner that it's sticking out to me, though, is turn 4, where we saw that little mistake from Jason. That car always looks a little more unhappy than Steve's car as they go through those lower S's.
And here you got a pretty good battle there, back right behind Randy Johnson in that Mustang. That is the silver BMW, the 13 of Francis's dad, Frank Seldorf, and then Alan Briere right behind him in the number 53.
Really cool story for Briere. Looking up the inside now becomes the outside. He actually started a lot of his track day driving with the Track Night in America program with the SCCA and leveled his way up through into a licensed driver racing at the National Championships. One of the kind of true ladders, beacons of the ladder that we offer here.
Oh, okay, yeah, and it's absolutely great to see that. And it looks like, again, maybe Jason Ott had a little bit of a moment somewhere, because suddenly Steve has that margin again, and Chris Hart is climbing all over the rear deck of Jason Ott at this point. And let's watch him here. Ooh, a lot of rotation there for Jason. Almost runs it off the track.
Yeah, he's driving that thing with neutral steer to a little bit of counter, and there's something about the way that car is driving now that it's just not able to get through the lower S's at turns 4, 5, and 6 the way that Steve Ott's car and Chris Hart's car are. So the blue and white car in the middle, floundering at the beginning of the lap, but recovers in the second half of the lap. And it looks like the rear end of that car is starting to go away a little bit.
But right away, they get onto this long run up Madison Avenue. You can see Jason Hart easing away, Jason Ott easing away from Chris Hart a little bit. And there you can see the margin that those three have back to Travis Wache, now up into fourth. And that's basically 15 seconds. So it's really a mano battle for the podium spots here. And then Travis Wache now has a little bit of room back to James Lighthouser. And then this great battle between Rob Hines in the silver Nissan and Shai Che that just loses ground on the straights and then gobbles it up and is all over Rob Hines by the time they get halfway through the roller coaster and halfway through the S's on the other side of the track.
A chase car run by Techsport Racing, who won the championship in T4 in the older version of the same car, and also professionally races the Subaru BRZ version of this same car in SRO America. So they have a lot of experience, and they're based here at VIR. He looks to be very, very composed and driving very well. He's just at a slight deficit down these longer straightaways, but not this lap. Check this out.
Wow, got a great run. Now going to put on a little bit of a test of braking durability down into turn one. He's to the inside, and clearly Hines trying to ramp the outside and give him position here into turn number 3. Hines has the overlap, dives to the inside. G going to try and stay up on the outside. Now he's going to square up, and I don't think, didn't have quite enough. And as I say that, thought about the dive into left hook, and then decided, nope, that's going to end in tears, and backed out.
I think he thought about it a little too late. Hines got on the brakes earlier than he expected. He looked like he was going to pop and then had to surprisingly check up just a little bit. So he's going to keep the pressure on there as we take a look back towards the back of the pack, the number 17 of Steve Smychek.
And Steve Smychek, as you see, our Sunoco 260 Tuesday winner, a specialty award created by Sunoco to help promote their 260 line of racing fuels. And what it is on Tuesday qualifying, at the end of the day, in each class, whichever time was closest after the dot to a 260 was awarded a nice grouping of gallons of that great fuel. So a fun award, but one that, anything helps at this level of racing, and getting some really, really top level fuel given to you is nice here. And Hines, Chris Hart right now, just looks like he's losing a little bit more time now on that run down Madison Avenue.
Yeah, and on that slightly smaller width tire, you have to wonder, now that we're in 11 laps working, now coming to lap 12, he lost about a half a second last time through. He was already at a straight line advantage, and if his tires are falling off at even a similar rate, let alone a faster rate, he's definitely got an uphill battle. Definitely still seeing the back end of the 09. Watch, he can't even get the power down. The 29, or 26, however, the leader, Steve Ott, that car looks planted.
Yeah, it's just hooking up, isn't it? But you're right about Jason, and for Chris Hart, as you talking about those tires, if you don't have grip when you try and get that run out of Oak Tree, you're just carrying that deficit a long time there, aren't you?
Even still, he closes right up underneath the rear of that Z4. Oh, no, he must have made a mistake. He was very close. He must have had a bobble just off camera.
Well, now he's really going to have to hustle here to get back up in this. I mean, if he stays mistake-free, he's got a bronze. But he didn't come here for bronze.
No, and especially, when you upgrade to a new car and you know that it's going to be a little bit faster, it still stings a little if you watch that battle the entire time. Man, wow. Jason Ott has a handful of a car through South Bend right now.
Yeah, he's just been chasing it through there big time.
Oh,
and a lockup, and off goes Hart and into the barriers. Oh, my goodness. After such a great drive, I jinxed him. I just said, no mistake, you got a bronze. And just puts it into the barriers up there. And this is probably going to be a caution because, this is definitely in an impact zone here. Watch it here, Tomo.
Yeah, I know from past experience that these Nissan Zs do have a tendency or a slight history of ABS failures, especially on racetracks. And I have to wonder if he just lost the ABS. And it, as I said, I've seen it a lot of times. It's not so common that it's every single time you go to the racetrack, but it is not unheard of to lose ABS in these cars. And for it to just lock up randomly like that, I have to wonder, have to speculate.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you're right. Obviously, they have been, that's been one of the things that a lot of teams that race the Nissans, chase a lot. But, you don't see ABS lock up. If anything, it goes numb and just loses efficiency. So a lockup like that would sure indicate some sort of a failure. And, boy, I'll tell you what, Xiao Yi doing an absolutely great job. Got around Hines before the caution. That could be really big here. Any pass you can make before the caution comes out is going to pay big dividends, and the caution is out. And that might be exactly what Jason Hart needs if those tires are overheating due to whatever setup choice he has in the car. If we get this cleared up quick enough, maybe he'll have a little bit better weapon to try and win 2 in a row.
And that also promotes Travis Wachet to the podium.
How about that?
His GTI. That is super cool. A great race effort that he's got there. When the yellow came out, they were about 20 seconds apart, so he has not been close to them. But that puts him into the bronze medal position. Lighthouser has raced his way back to 4th. Xiao Yi with that last-minute pass right before the yellow came out goes to 5th. That's a top 5 for the GR86 driver.
Yeah, Travis Wachet getting the silver medal in B-Spec back in Laguna Seca in the 2014. And keep in mind, folks, he started this race 9th. And as Tomo just said now, he is up into that 3rd spot. He might well be the stoutest candidate right now, Tomo, for the Sunoco Hard Charger Award. That's 6 spots he's made up in a tough field.
Yeah, that's a great drive. I'm hearing actually from Chris Hart's teammate Gama Aguilar Gomez, who we've seen in the runoffs many a time, that Chris isn't even running the ABS in that car because of that known failure point. So he didn't have ABS the entire race. I was on the right path anyway, but got into the brakes just a little bit too much, locked that right front, and he's been so quick in Oak Tree, he didn't have any margin for error. You saw how quickly that car went off track.
Yeah, and he had to be quick there, didn't he? Because it was the only way he had any shot of maybe getting after the Ott boys with an opportunity to be close enough somewhere. And Travis Wachet coming up on the back, bringing James Lighthouser with him. And, at the time of the caution, Travis had opened up a nice little margin on James Lighthouser. And I'll tell you what, there's nobody in this field, I don't think, with any more experience at the runoffs than James Lighthouser. And, he's going to try and put that to use here on this restart. And, the other thing is that promotes with that off. He got by Hines, and as a result, now Xiao Yi finds himself up in the top 5. So really good run for Xiao Yi in his 2nd runoff start.
Francis Seldorf, even with that little off, back to 7th.
Yeah.
Aslan Lendrum, Jared Lendrum, the driver we haven't talked about much, in a new Subaru WRX STI. Jared always flying the Subaru banner. He sits 9th, and another STI, the older version of Anthony Pacelli, which we saw that car podium in STU last year. Chip Herr at the wheel. That car is in the top 10. Good to see Chris Hart out of the car packing body parts. Obviously not good to see that he's out of the car, but good to see that he got himself out of the car.
Exactly. Yeah, you were talking about Jared Lendrum. He was last year's Sunoco Hard Charger, came from 13th in the field to 7th spot. So it's finding that progress toward the front a little bit more difficult to come into right now. And then Anthony Pizzelli, we got 2 Subarus that are running in formation here, so to speak, in 9th and 10th. Jared Lendrum out of Queensbury, New York, and Pizzelli out of Mowertown, Virginia. So for Pizzelli in particular, this is very much a home race for him here. And we're just waiting to get word, folks, obviously, as to when. Oh, and we just get word we are going to finish this one under caution. They got the car moved, but again, there's that little bit of barrier damage, and that is a great concern. And by the time they get this car completely clear of the track and get those barriers put together, we've only got 2 laps left. It's just not enough time. And one of the policies that SCCA has is they will not do a 1-lap shootout. And again, this isn't pro racing. Yes, you're going for a national championship, but the last thing you want is, you know, the carnage that can often result from that green and white kind of final lap here. Here's a look at the number 88 of Anthony Pizzelli. Again, I'm sure enjoying his time here, and we will get the checker actually this time by a lap early, Tomo.
Yeah, it is unfortunate to not be able to finish under green, of course, but also the safety issue of a tire wall that is not as intended can't be ignored, unfortunately. So for the second year in a row, it looks that it will be an Ott sweeping the runoffs, but this year, from pole and at the top of the runoffs championship race, it is Steve Ott taking the win over his brother Jason, who did the same feat last year. Travis Wache, super cool story there.
Isn't it, though?
Coming up to 3rd at the end of this race.
Yeah, and as I said, from the 9th spot, so a really good run for him. And, you know, it's nice to see. You know, that's what you want to see is drivers that start off in B-Spec, which is, a great training ground because it's a momentum class. You learn to carry speed and do all that, and it's a class that you can get into at a relatively inexpensive budget. And then when you're ready, now you step up, and Travis shows, oh, he was ready.
Absolutely, yeah, and of course a longtime instructor, I believe, worked with Skip Barber through the years at Lime Rock, racing older Volkswagens, IT cars, came into the B-Spec realm with the Mini Cooper, and then racing this GTI, the same exact car in World Challenge for a number of years. I've raced against him. Yeah, it's tough to beat sometimes, that car, and now switching it over into the SCCA Touring 3 category, where it does seem to be a decent contender.
It certainly does, and he gave it a great ride here as, again, we are going to complete this lap and bring it home under a checker flag here. And, again, positions, it's an Ott 1-2. This time they just swap positions up there. And you're really impressed here for Francis Seldorf. I know, he doesn't have a lot of time here in the runoffs, but he certainly has been gaining a lot of experience in the like as well. So great to see that. We saw David Oram, who was putting together a good run and then had that little bit of an off, but was able to gather it up and bring it back on. It would have been interesting to see, had Chris not gone off, just what might have happened at the end of this one. But hey, that's what do they call it? The slings and arrows of racing fortune.
Yeah,
it happens.
And the runoffs is very unique in that it's a one race take all, and you have to show up and you have to deliver in this race. I can't think of many other motorsports challenges in general, but specifically road racing championships that are determined by simply one race.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's all on the line in that one race, which is why we see both. It means so much to people who win, but also why drivers are trying so hard, and things can go a little bit sideways or a little bit straight in Chris Hart's scenario.
Well, and that makes a really good point. It isn't like a playoff scenario where it's best 2 out of 3, and yes, we've got the Hoosier Super Tour Championship, and you've got majors points that are tracked by division and the like. But this is it. I mean, this is one race for everything here. And while we're talking about that, we have a minute here. Let's remind everybody, if you would like to get involved with the Sports Car Club of America, it's surprisingly easy to do. There are 115 regions this country is broken up in, all of them grouped in various divisions. And all you have to do is contact SCCA.com, click membership. You can sign up. It's extremely inexpensive when you think about what you get out of a year here. And as I said when I joined, I thought I was joining a club, and I found out I just increased the size of my family by about 50,000, because you all share a passion. And whether you want to drive or whether you want to work tech, whatever, there is a place for you to be a participant in these races if you're a member of SCCA.
And a lot of those most grassroots versions don't even require joining the club right away.
Yep.
You basically get a secret weekend membership that you don't even have to think about, and you get to go to, you mentioned Alan Briere, came from the SCCA Track Night program. You've seen autocrossers like me come into motorsports careers. You can go drive anything you have pretty much.
Absolutely. Here's a look at some of the highlights from the race, and from the off, it was Steve Ott Pole sitter getting in the lead, the yellow BMW, the blue one right behind him. And it was Chris Hart really aggressive early, trying to make the way around the outside and do something. Couldn't get it done there. James Lighthouser hopped up in front of Rob Hines there and was able to jump into that fourth spot. And just the battling started to continue, and it was good everywhere around the track here. And have a look here, some really stout stuff. That's the number 4 of Hines. And look at Shahid Che, even clipping that curve, he gets up alongside Lighthouser, never touched. Really great racing. And look at Travis Awashe. You see that number 30 VW back there a little bit. Didn't take him long to get through. And again, Xiaoyu Qi, this time up and against the number 19 of Francis Seldorf. Such close quarters racing, such great respect.
3 clips ago about is when Travis Wache's race came alive, but this is when the pass for ultimately the podium happened. Power move around the outside of turn 1, so hard to pull off, especially in a front-wheel drive car. And then the beautiful rotation. Hines thought about maybe trying to stick to the outside, realized it wasn't going to work, and tucks in. And that was the pass that would become 3rd place. As the front drivers are continuing to push, but the rear of that BMW falling apart. ABS, a slight mistake for the 3rd place driver, the number 5 of Chris Hart, and just couldn't quite keep it out of that tire wall at the top of Oak Tree.
Well, you know, you think here as the checker flag comes out, and this one is now in the books. You know, you think about the speed we've been talking about at Tomo, how fast you go through South Bend or turn 10. So you've got that kind of pace before you jump on the brakes in a bending braking zone into Oak Tree. And when something locks up like that, it doesn't take much for you to drop those outside tires, and then you're a passenger. So that's how it plays. So this field making its way down into pit lane here. And it's an Ott once again, your national champion. Just a different one this time. And I'm sure that's a pattern they wouldn't mind repeating multiple times into the future. You win, I win, you win, I win.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd start to get selfish. I want to win again.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Especially with your brother. Brotherly love,
well,
right?
Yeah, exactly. And
I love you, but not that much.
And what it really comes down to, doesn't it, when it's a brother or a sister or whatever, you want to finish on top because then you're not the one who feels a little awkward at Thanksgiving.
Bro, sure.
Yeah.
But there's also that level of what no one else can pick on him but you. You want him right behind you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Mom likes you best because you're faster. So, Steve Ott, boy, I'll tell you, he just has been on it all day. And you think about it, he didn't even set a time. Well, he had a loss of times in that first session, and then came back on Wednesday and cracked off a 2:04.520. And you think about it, well, that sounds like a nice time. How big of a margin was it? Well, Jason went a 2:04.534. So 14 1,000 separated those two guys, those two brothers on that front row. Look at that smile. Let's get it down to Hayward, who I'm sure is chomping at the bit to hear from our champion.
I'm sure you did not really want to finish under full course caution, but it's a pretty elegant way to keep the Thanksgiving table civil, don't you think?
Oh, man, that was, I feel bad for Chris, going off there at the end, but that was a heck of a race. It was kind of a calamity of errors, who could make the least amount of errors every lap and still keep it together. But, the car was great. Hoosiers stayed underneath me all the time, Alpine Motorsports, Spyglass Engineering, everybody just really put it together. Jim Lighthouser for getting the cars ready. It was just, I hate to see that, but it did take the pressure off a little bit.
Last year, you got to watch your brother win a national championship. How does it feel to now put a gold medal around your neck?
Mine's most recent, so that'll be what I'll bring up every time I see him. But no, it's great. You couldn't ask for more. Last year, he was the one that didn't make a mistake. This year, I just happened to not make too many mistakes and worked out well. So I'm really happy to be here.
Well, congratulations to you. It looks like you got room to pack a couple of people in for the victory lap. Enjoy this one.
Thank you very much.
I like that. Steve Ott thinking, Jason, 2022 champion? That's so last year.
Well, you heard him mention all the mistakes. I think it's that kind of race. We mentioned these are the most intense in the car, and every little mistake starts to feel like the end of the world. And not buckling under that pressure. You heard him mention calamity of errors. I didn't see a lot of them. So whatever was happening, they were minor.
They were pretty minor, but the drivers feel it. 2 more podium contenders to hear from. Hayward?
Did you manage to get all the frustration out before they turned the camera on? Are you ready to say happy things?
I'm ready to say happy things. First and foremost, congratulations to my brother. Awesome job. Thank you for what a great race. That was absolutely exhausting. Totally different than last year. It was great.
Tomo said that coming into, I guess it's South Bend, coming down to the Oak Tree complex, it just top of the S's just looked like you had your hands ridiculously full every lap. Did you miss setup? Were tires going away? What was happening there?
Yeah, I overdrove it and just overheated the rear tires. It was my fault. It just started getting a little loose, and just like usual, I had to calm down. Tires came back to me.
We'd love to talk to you more, but I understand you have to give a little driving lesson here. You're going to jump in, give them some pointers?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes. Congratulations. Thanks, everybody.
And we're going to grab our third place finisher, Travis. Travis, I just want to do some quick math. Where did you start on this grid?
It was so far back I couldn't remember.
I believe it was 9th. Where'd you end up?
Okay, yeah, 9th or 10th. I ended up 3rd.
How's that feel?
Feels great. 3's my lucky number. I just turned 50 a couple weeks ago. Crazy. First podium. So it's been I've been doing this since I was 16 years old. There's people I started autocrossing with here supporting me from New England Region SCCA. All of our contingency people. Hoosier Tires, absolutely amazing. You know, I abused them pretty good today. I played the consistency card. I just put on clean laps, one after the other. You know, I got to show off for my boys.
This feels like it's really emotional for you. What makes this so important to you?
Still got it. I have a 6 and 8-year-old, Cooper and Miller. My dad, you know, we've been doing this. This is what we do. This is what the Washay boys do.
Well, congratulations to you on the bronze. A great drive here from 9th to 3rd.
Yep, and I want to make sure United Motorsport is what made this car last. Hoosier Tires, Carbotech brakes, but United Motorsport, they helped me develop the car back in the day, and I wanted to give a big shout out. Thanks, Jeff and Freddie, man.
Well, you can hear the emotion there, Tomo. You know, especially when you've been competing for a long time, and then you think about it. He's done a lot of racing, but this was his 6th runoff start as well. And to finally get the podium, you can hear the emotion there. And this is truly special. The runoffs is a unique event. It's a one-of-a-kind event, and it is about as prestigious as it gets.
Yeah, I would say from knowing Travis personally, there are people who do motorsports for their life, and then there are people who live motorsports, and that is their life. And I would say Travis is in that category. Both are a great way to live your life, but it adds this different layer when it is the thing you're chasing. And I think that's where the little choke up, and especially when you hear him say, "I still got it." You know, I just turned 50 and I still got it.
Yep.
I just turned 30, and every reminder that I get that I still got it still feels special. So I know how he feels to an extent, and you could tell it meant a lot to all 3 of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Just phenomenal. And to me, going back to Steve's comment, about the mistakes, and he said about as different from last year as it could get in those horrid conditions. No mistakes. I mean, it was great, and they just are able to do it in any kind of condition. And what a race it was! And this race wraps up day 2 of Hagerty race days here at the 60th running of the SCCA National Championship Runoffs. The run to the gold in Touring 3, and it's an Ott 1-2 again. Just a reverse of positions, and they seem just fine with that. And an emotional moment for Travis Washay, the first medal in runoffs competition. What a great way to end this day. We've got another full one coming up for you tomorrow as well. But for now, we're going to wrap up our coverage of our Touring 3 National Championship Runoff for Tom O'Gorman, and, of course, for Hayward Wagner down in the pits, and for John Phippen, and for Larry McLeod, the other announce team here in the booth. Great job by everybody, and I want to give a personal shout-out here to the Apex Productions crew. These camera people, the guys in the truck, the gals in the truck, and everywhere around here, just killing it this weekend, doing a stellar job, and it has been a treat to be a part of it. Another big day tomorrow. Until then, everybody, take good care.
Mazda's been very supportive of racers within the SCCA and all the other grassroots organizations for many, many years. Really, their support for racing and our type of racing is unmatched from any other manufacturer. They've been a great partner for many, many years.
Mazda, hands down, is the best company to work with for sports car racing. Factory support is second to none. It just feels right. You feel connected.